Welcome ground control. The item I have for review is the Radiolink T8FB 8-channel transmitter. This transmitter and receiver are courtesy of Radiolink. I want to thank them much for sending this item for review. So you get the full 8-channel transmitter. It comes with a removable battery tray, so you can remove it and use a LiPo to power the transmitter, anything from a 2S to a 4S LiPo. So I really like that. It comes with a color manual that's very, very detailed. They do an excellent job on their documentation. So everything that I'm going to tell you, plus more, is in this manual. And there's a downloadable version of it on their website as well. The transmitter comes with an additional arm and spring. So if you want to configure your throttle stick so it maintains a center position, in case you're wanting to fly something like a 3D helicopter, or a helicopter that has altitude hold, or a quadcopter that has altitude hold, you can do that. The receiver, and I love their receivers. They're full range receivers. They're not 200 meter to 300 meter receivers. These are full range receivers. And what I love about these is they support all 3 modes. I wish all manufacturers would do that. But it supports S-Bus, PPM, and PWM. With the little bind button on the side, if you quick press it twice within a second, you can switch it from S-Bus, PPM mode to PWM mode. In PWM, the light will be illuminated red, and when it is in S-Bus, PPM mode, it will be illuminated blue. The first channel is reserved for S-Bus, the second channel is reserved for PPM, and if you have it in PWM mode, of course you get all 8 channels. If you hold in the bind button, long press it, I think for over 1 second, you should get a flashing light. That's how you put the transmitter or the receiver into bind mode for the transmitter. And these are full range receivers. So in mine, I have a 2S 850 milliamp hour 50C LiPo. Had an XT30 connector on it, so I just fabricated an adapter to go from XT30 to this red JST, and that works great. I much prefer to power these with LiPos rather than AA batteries. You have a DSC port on the back you can use for firmware updates. You can use it as a flight simulator controller, and you can use it in a master-slave buddy box configuration. So if you have 2 of these, you can connect them together with the DSC ports and help someone learn how to fly. It has 2 potentiometer dials on the top shoulders of the transmitter. I do not feel any center detents, but they do have raised nubs on top of the dials so you can visually see the center position of those dials. On the left-hand side, you have a 3-position switch. On the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, you have a 2-position switch. You also have these mechanical switches down here for your aileron, elevator, or throttle rudder, for either having the channel in a normal position or having it reversed. Now, I think that's nice to have in a pinch, but I much prefer to use the application either on the computer. They have an application that runs on Windows. They have an application that runs on the Android phone using Bluetooth. I prefer to use the phone application since I always have my phone with me. But I would prefer to change those channels, whether they need to be normal or reverse in the application, so it's saved with the model file, so that the next time that I bind up to a different receiver with a different model, I'm not having to worry about the mechanical position of these switches. So it's a nice feature to use in a pinch, but I'm going to be using the application to set those channels normal or reversed. Alright, so one of the first things you want to do with this transmitter is calibrate the sticks on the transmitter. So I'm going to bring the camera in here, and we're going to go over the process of calibrating the sticks on the transmitter, and then we'll go over the process of binding up to the receiver. And I already have a plane picked out that I'm going to take this out for its first field test. And then they also sent me a telemetry capable receiver, that can give you telemetry on your RSSI and also on your flight battery or your vehicle battery. I'm going to be putting this in a different plane, and we're going to take it out and do the field test with this receiver as well. So I'll bring the camera in here, we'll go over the process of calibrating the sticks, and then we'll load up the phone application and connect to the transmitter and bind up to the receiver. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so the procedure for calibrating the sticks on the transmitter, you want to make sure that your sticks are in the center position, including your throttle stick. So make sure your throttle stick is in the center position. You want to take the rudder trim button and you want to hold it over to the left at the same time that you power on the transmitter. You see you have the red and green blinking lights, so the transmitter is now ready to have the sticks calibrated. We want to move the sticks up to the full extent, side to side, up, down, corner to corner, so that it reads the maximum extent of the sticks. And I'm going to do that a couple of times. And then we want to return the sticks to the center position, including the throttle stick, and then push the rudder trim button over to the right. Okay, and now you have solid lights. So now the calibration is complete. You can power off your transmitter, and when you power it back on, your stick should be calibrated. Okay, I'm trying to get everything in screen here. Remember that before you bring up your application, you need to enable notifications for the application. You need Bluetooth enabled and location enabled in order for it to find the transmitter to connect via Bluetooth. So let's go ahead and turn on our transmitter. And let's select connect on the application, and it shows Radiolink. Okay, and the Radiolink is beeping me. It wants to confirm the connection. So just toggle your rudder trim button, and now we're connected to the transmitter, and you can see it brings up all the channels. Okay, so now one thing I'm curious about is I have the R8EF 8-channel receiver installed in the King Kong L-Dark Tiny Wing. This is the first plane I want to go out and fly. One thing I'm curious about is I've already configured this wing with this receiver with the different Radiolink transmitter. So I'm curious to see if it saved that model file on my phone, if I can use that same model file to connect to the receiver now and not have to change anything. If I have the model files available from transmitter to transmitter instead of having to physically create it again and write it to the transmitter. So let's see real quick. Let's go ahead and read the transmitter. Okay, and it says new model file. Let's say load. Yeah, so it shows my model files in here. So let's select the Tiny Wing 450, and it shows Tiny Wing 450 here that I'm connected to. So let me get a flight battery to hook up to this receiver and see if we can bind up to it, if everything is good to go, and then I'll go over the configuration that I already had set up in it. Be back in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to connect my flight battery here just to see. Okay, so I think we're going to have to bind to it. Okay, there we go. Now I'm bound to it. Ah. Okay, so let's try to write that and see what happens. Ah, how about that? Holy cow, that is awesome. So all I had to do was write the configuration that I already had to the transmitter, and the aircraft is completely set up. How cool is that? That is awesome. That is a huge time saver. Okay, so if I will have a link in the show notes to the review of the T8S, a Radiolink transmitter, where I set this aircraft up from scratch. But let's go ahead and go over. Okay, so you see my dual rate on the aileron. Okay, and the elevator, and let me see, it's reading, yeah, it's reading my throttle stick. So the aircraft is set up on it. So let's go into basic and channel one, which is aileron. Excuse me, I have that set for reverse. So if I go left, it comes up left, right, comes up right. Channel 2, which is elevator, I have reversed. I have a lot of sub trim in it. And channel 3 is, let's see here. Yeah, that's good. So channel 3 is throttle, and I have that reversed, and channel 4 is rudder. Of course, I don't have anything in that. Okay, so fail-safe. Fail-safe, I have 50-50, which is the center position. Throttle I have set at 0, and rudder is at 50, which is a neutral position as well, although it doesn't have a rudder. So fail-safe is set at center positions. Okay, let's go to dual rate curve. So on channel 1, I have the rate set at 65%, which is aileron, and I have the exponent set at 75. And then if we go into channel 2, which is going to be elevator, I have it set for 65 on the dual rate and 75 on the exponent. So this is the settings that I had up for the T8S transmitter. So what I'm curious about is to see if the same configuration that I had on the T8S transmitter works well on the T8FB transmitter, or if I'm going to have to make some adjustments, because this transmitter does have more resolution on the sticks than the T8S has, which is a much smaller form factor transmitter. But that's absolutely fantastic. The only thing that I had to do, write it to the transmitter. I didn't have to change anything else in the configuration, so that is absolutely awesome that the model file is kept on the phone itself, and I can load that model file and write it to this transmitter just like I did the T8S. And the only thing that I had to do to get that working was write it to the transmitter, and everything was good to go. So what a huge time saver that is. I wish all my transmitters worked that easy, instead of having to, you know, transfer files from one transmitter to transmitter. Having it loaded in a central, having the model file located in a central location like the phone sure makes it easy to connect different transmitters to the same aircraft. So I really like that. That is a huge time saver. So I think we're ready to take this plane out and test it out. So stay tuned for part 2 of this review. We will take our tiny wing out with our Elevon mixing program, with our dual rate and our expo for this transmitter, and we will do the field test of it. And then for part 3, we will set up the Aerobat 800mm 3D plane with this transmitter and the telemetry receiver, and we will take it out to the field and test that out in part 3 of the review. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the air.